Running a recruiting firm is enough work. You shouldn't need 5 vendors to manage your online presence. With Recruiter's websites, you get it all in one place. Websites, SEO, paid ads, automation, and ongoing strategy, all built specifically for recruiters. We understand your industry, your clients, and your challenges. Simplify your marketing and strengthen your results. Mention Elite Recruiter and get 10% off any new service at recruiterswebsites.com. Coming up on this episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast.
In order to visualize being successful, I think the first thing is you can't put anybody on a pedestal. And that might sound like disrespectful, but to me, titles, resumes, that doesn't win. It's the execution that matters. So you've got to respect people, but you kind of never let yourself feel smaller. With that first gig, right? They were like, hey, if you bill 120,000 in your first 12 months, you're doing pretty well. And me being naive and just maybe incredibly competitive, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to double that. That's going to be my goal, which was really cool. I ended up doing in the first 7 months, 200,000. And then I think the first 12 months, it was 400,000. So I just was like, I'm going to find a way to win and find a way to be really good at it.
Welcome to the Elite Recruiter Podcast with your host, Benjamin Mena, where we focus on what it takes to win in the recruiting game. We cover it all from sales, marketing, mindset, money, leadership, and placements.
Admin is a massive waste of time. That's why there's Atlas, the AI first recruitment platform built for modern agencies. It doesn't only track resumes and calls. It remembers everything, every email, every interview, every conversation, instantly searchable, always available. And now it's entering a whole new era. With Atlas 2.0, you can ask anything and it delivers. With Magic Search, you speak and it listens. It finds the right candidates using real conversations, not simply looking for keywords. Atlas 2.0 also makes business development easier than ever. With opportunities, you can track, manage, and grow client relationships powered by generative AI and built right into your workflow. Need insights? Custom dashboards give you total visibility over your pipeline. And that's not theory. Atlas customers have reported up to 41% EBITDA growth and an 85% increase in monthly billings after adopting the platform. No admin, no silos, no lost info, nothing but faster shortlists, better hires, and more time to focus on what actually drives revenue. Atlas is your personal AI partner for modern recruiting. Don't miss the future of recruitment. Get started with Atlas today and unlock your exclusive listener offer at recruitwithatlas.com. I am excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast because this is a person that I've actually wanted to interview for well over a year. I am finally getting a chance to do this. And here's the thing. I absolutely love people that have done well in one area and then found a way to transition that into recruiting. And this is a professional athlete that just crushed it on the field. And then there's a lot of times where people just stumble in the transition. But he found a way to take the work ethic of an athlete, the work ethic of excellence, and take it into the recruiting world. And it just absolutely crushes. So we're going to break down what he did on the field. We're going to break down what he's doing in the recruiting field and where he's going to go. So Jared, welcome to the podcast.
Man, what an intro. Ben, thank you for having me. Really excited to be here. I've been a longtime fan from my end and learned a ton from your content and your podcast. So excited to be on.
Man, I've been a fan of yours. I'm sitting there watching your LinkedIn post and I'm like, how did he structure that? What did he do? Oh wait, he just closed this much. I'm like, all right, let's get back to work, man. Let's go recruiting.
There we go.
All right. So real quick, a quick 30-second introduction, niche, your company, everything real quick.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm the founder of Next Place Search Group, and I say founder and it's just me, only me, myself, and I. I had an unconventional path, I would say, into recruiting, but at Next Place Search Group, we specialize in recruiting for private equity and venture capital backed software companies. The recruiting story, it kind of starts from my soccer playing days. So I'll talk a little bit about the journey and path to how I got here. I got into recruiting actually because of my days playing professional soccer in MLS. So I would say the moment or where the seed was planted was I had the opportunity to negotiate my second contract in MLS myself without an agent. It was a really amazing experience. I got to kind of go into this deep, performance data management side to kind of make my case. So I got to look at my draft class. I was a second round pick, number 33 overall. It's actually why I picked my soccer jersey as professional number 33 as a reminder every day that, hey, these teams passed on you. You're the 33rd pick. That's motivation to continue to kind of prove yourself day in and day out. So a little tidbit there on the soccer jersey. But No, it was really cool. So I got to kind of compare myself to who were the players that were still in the league from my draft class? How many minutes did each of us play? Like, especially those picked ahead of me. And then I got to break down even more of like, okay, well, what about my starts, my appearances, team results when I played? And then how could I match that publicly? Because every single year, salary data is released by MLS. So you can go back and see what every player makes every year. So that kind of gave me some leverage to come in and say, hey, here's a fair number, what I believed I was worth. And yeah, it was just a really interesting experience there.
Let me take a step back. Okay, so you were like drafted into Major League Soccer.
Correct. A second round draft pick, number 33 overall. But it's an interesting story. It's not like you just walk in, you're drafted, and you have a contract from day one. I went in and literally started from the bottom. I walked into preseason that first day. I wasn't even allowed in the locker room with the guys who had contracts. I was in a separate locker room. Like, I had to prove myself. I had to earn a contract, from day one.
This isn't like a signing over a contract. You're good to go. You're part of the team. You made it. Like, it's like it was just an opportunity, and then you had to go earn it again.
Yeah, at that level. I mean, in MLS, if you're not really like a top probably 10 draft pick that have like guaranteed contracts, it's just structured a little bit differently. Now that was, over a decade ago. So it's changed a little bit as new collective bargaining agreements have evolved. But yeah, at the time, I mean, I walked in, I didn't have a contract. I had to prove myself. So it was interesting. But again, I continued to have to kind of shake that stigma of being a lower draft pick my entire time in MLS.
Okay. So like in today's world, I can hop on Perplexity and be like, hey, how many hours did Jared play? What was his scoring data? What was this? Like, I have all these tools to get this stuff now. Like, how the hell a decade ago did you pull like massive amounts of data to go like, hey, compare yourself against everybody else?
I mean, your draft class, right? You go back and you look and you can see appearances, what guys were still in the league, like who were making the team, who were actually playing, minutes played, like results when those guys were playing. It was kind of a fun project and something to kind of keep me busy and motivated to be like, hey, I belong. Like, I've played and kind of fast forward in 2016, like I was part of anchoring a defense that was one of the best in MLS history. Like, we were a game away from MLS Cup. We were probably the best team in the entire league that year. We were close to winning the Supporters Shield, which is the hardest trophy to win. I was starting center back and Tim Howard was behind me as my goalie. So it was really cool.
So like, how many hours did that take you to pull that data together? I'm just like, because it's one of those things, like, I've been around athletes. Like, I never got to the pro level. I was just at the college level. And, half the athletes are like, oh yeah, just show up, do the thing. And then you got the small subset that analyze everything.
Yeah. I was in an environment early on from my soccer days of like, this was coming through the ranks of playing on youth national teams. So every single day, every training, every game, every practice, like, was always being evaluated. And I like that because it made you stay at a high level. Your standard had to be at a high level. You'd have to continue to make it because the moment you thought you made it, somebody's going to pass you. And so that mindset, is just kind of, it's evolved with me as I played through youth national team. I mean, my jersey behind me in my office here is with the U17 World Cup that I was able to play in. And not only playing it, but I got to captain it. Like, that was one of the most rewarding moments of my soccer career. I got to represent the United States. And, that was going back. I went off to school as a high school sophomore, spent 2.5 years in what they called the residency program. So, top 40 kids in the United States are invited down. You train, you go to school. I mean, it's really a professional environment from that early age. And then every single semester, like, you have to get invited back. So it was a constant every semester. Like, I had to make sure I was coming back, playing on the team, like making an impact. And, there were probably 10 to 15 guys that were core that we made it throughout the 2.5 years. And ultimately the goal is to play in a U17 World Cup, which I was able to do. But again, from an early age, it was like, hey, your performance is being evaluated. You have to perform, be at a high level every single day, or, there's a chance you won't make it.
We're going to go back to soccer in a second. So
yeah,
but I got a question. Like, you've been like around like tracking, you've been around having to like requalify as a young kid. Like, how has that impacted your recruiting?
No, it's a good question. I think for me, as I made the transition into recruiting, it was kind of like a step back of, one thing I think I did really well is like earning the trust of the veterans in a locker room. And now on the recruiting side, like, my first gig, it was at Parker and Lynch under the Adecco Group, like a really large staffing firm. I took the same mentality as the locker room. First one in, first one out, right? I remember getting to the office some days the lights weren't even on. Like, I wanted to go and be beside the best recruiters, see what they were doing well, learn from them, be a student of the game. And, that transitioned over early on in my recruiting career. Like with that first gig, right? They were like, hey, if you bill 120,000 in your first 12 months, like you're doing pretty well. And me being naive and just maybe incredibly competitive, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to double that. Like that's going to be my goal, which was really cool. I ended up doing in the first like 7 months, 200,000. And then I think the first 12 months, it was like 400,000. So I just was like, I'm going to find a way to win and find a way to be really good at it. And, it's transitioned into going from a larger firm into a boutique firm, going in-house at a software company and building out, a high growth software company and hiring over 100 people. And then now into starting my own firm. It's kind of translate the athlete in you, the athlete DNA never really goes away, but you've got to look at what are you measuring? Everything for me at least has to be kind of tied back to a number. And, that's how I look at it kind of in the day to day now in recruiting.
And we'll ask what you're measuring later. I want to go back to the soccer story.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're now playing Major League Soccer. You've negotiated your own contract. Did anybody else negotiate their own contract then?
Not many. No, not many. It was an interesting kind of exercise, right? Because you see how the team values you, and then the GM told me the next day after we came to an agreement, he's like, okay, cool. I'm going to start looking for your replacement tomorrow. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to let that happen, right? It's just a constant mindset that like I appreciated, and I always liked, again, I dedicated so much to soccer, and soccer gave me so much in my life, whether it was like a free education in college or playing on youth national teams, being able to become a professional. But I always knew there was going to be something for me after the game. But 5 years in the MLS was awesome. I mean, I was on the field with guys who like Steven Gerrard, his last professional soccer game ever. We beat him in the playoffs, Galaxy versus the Colorado Rapids, which was really cool. I mean, Andrea Pirlo, Drogba, like Ibrahimovic, like these world-renowned stars that were in the MLS, like I was playing against them. I was the center back marking the forward. And it was just like a really cool, surreal moment. But that, having that kind of undoubted, like almost foolish self-belief, like that's carried over into recruiting as well. And not being afraid of like adversity and just kind of going after and betting on yourself and try and find ways to win. Like that's kind of a mentality that's just baked into me.
We'll talk about how you got into recruiting in a minute, but like what happened to the soccer story? Like why did it end?
Yeah. It's funny because when it's like I was 10 years old and I saw my first MLS game, I told my dad, I was like, hey, I want to play in MLS one day. So I had like this very narrow vision of I'm going to find a way to get to the MLS and play in the MLS. It wasn't that I wanted to go overseas. It wasn't that I wanted to play in Europe. I wanted to play in the MLS, in soccer, in America at the highest level. And I worked and sacrificed a lot to get to that. Now 5 years playing over 100 games, like had a good career. I was a very good role player. Like I knew my role, and unfortunately injuries are part of it. Coaching changes, new ownership, like things happen, right? Like I was traded. I had a contract not renewed, but the last 2 years playing in MLS, I had, 2 season ending surgeries. And that's just part of it, right? And then I got to a point, my contract was up. Like my last year in Houston, I only played in like 8 or 9 games. I think I couldn't get healthy, couldn't get a good run of games. And they're like, hey, come into preseason. Other teams wanted me to come into preseason. But at that point, I was like, hey, I played 100 games. Like either sign me, let's do this or not. I didn't think I wanted to really like chase it in the lower divisions. No disrespect to guys that do that. But for me, it was always like, hey, I'm going to give it all I got for this, run here. And then I knew I wanted to do something. I was going to be successful, whatever that was going to be next. And, it kind of helped the transition going into recruiting because it wasn't that difficult of a transition for me, to be honest.
I just want to ask something. I've seen this happen with a lot of athletes and it sounded like you were already looking at the next thing, but I've seen a lot of athletes that have an identity issue where everything that they've built up and they've had as part of their identity and they've just walked away from 15 years of that being who they are. Did you have to struggle with that at all? Or were you just looking forward to the next thing and the next goals?
I wouldn't say it was easy, but I didn't struggle with it, if that makes sense. Like when I was playing in Colorado, professional sports opens up a lot of doors. I mean, I got connected with a software company out there, a founder, and he just let me come in and like shadow what he did on a day-to-day basis. Now they were under 20 million in ARR at the time, but like he went on and eventually sold that. But I got a little bit of a sneak peek into, hey, software world and what are different areas of the business and how do they grow? How do they monetize? Like what challenges do they see? And that was like a really interesting, perspective that I would go do in the afternoons a couple days a week and just to stay busy because like as an athlete.
While you were a soccer player, you were sitting there doing like.
Yeah, but more of like a, hey, we're like, I'll tell you a quick just kind of what a day-to-day looks like for an MLS player, at least. Like I would wake up, I would go into the facility probably around 7:30, 8 a.m., get treatment, get a quick workout in, like prepare for training. So training on the field was typically between like 9 to 10:30, 9 to 11. You come back in, you get treatment, you do extra work, like you hit the gym, there's lunch there. Maybe you're watching film after lunch, and then you're typically out of the facility probably by like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And so that gives you some time of, I wasn't just going to go home and play video games. Like I knew a lot of guys did. Like for me, it was like, how can I continue to learn? How can I set myself up for what's next? And sometimes that's like taboo in the locker room. It's like, no, you have to be 100% committed. I'm committed because I was, but I also wanted to continue to like stay busy, think about what was next for me. So I never really struggled. I mean, the identity leaving soccer, it was something I did, but it wasn't really like who I was. So I was always kind of thinking of, hey, what's going to be next for me?
Okay. And then how'd you go from this awesome world of soccer to the land of misfit toys recruiting?
Yeah.
How did that work out?
I wanted to carry kind of the same discipline, the work ethic, the student of the game kind of mentality into this new chapter. And an old teammate, actually, a goalie in Colorado, one of his high school teammates was at this big firm that I had mentioned, Parker and Lynch, under the Adecco. I think they're now like LHH, but I was fortunate enough to get connected with him. And he's a great manager and he was awesome. He gave me a chance. His name's David Jolly. So shout out, David. Appreciate you. And really that set the foundation for me, like learning the business, building confidence, proving that I could translate like those lessons from sports and to executive search and just going after it and trying to win at that. It was a fun start. I mean, I spent 2.5 years there, like kind of cut my teeth, cold calling, just like learning the tricks of the trade, seeing what good looked like, seeing what bad looked like, and just kind of building and creating my own from that. So again, I had to come in, I had to like lead every KPI and metric because I was new and I wanted to learn. So that meant like first one in, last one out. I didn't have kids at the time, so my life was maybe a little bit different. I mean, that's 15 hours on the phone every week. It's, meeting people in person, going out and meeting clients, just like learning what good looked like and what bad looked like. And, I learned by just doing, and I wasn't afraid to look dumb or to start over. I just went for it with like a tenacity and a competitiveness that I think helped me set up, myself for success. And I knew pretty early on, like I wanted to go out and start my own firm, probably 6 months after starting in recruiting. I kind of knew.
Okay. I want to take a step back. You just said that you led every KPI in the office.
Yep.
Did you know that you were going to have that success because you led the KPIs, or is it just like, this is the athlete mentality? Like I am on the field to go work.
Yeah. I knew I was going to be successful. I kind of visualized this success, which might sound crazy, but same in soccer. Like you've got to visualize yourself making a play or being successful or having this, self-belief and the things that you can control, right? Like you can't control a soccer coach being fired. Well, you can to some extent. You can get good performances and win. But again, sometimes management comes in, the team sells, like a new GM comes in, they want their own coach. Maybe you're not in the plans for the next coach, but you can control what you can control. And that's training well. It's learning. It's, again, same that translates into recruiting. Like you control talking to people and making cold calls and getting your metrics up. That's important. It's like a scoreboard. I viewed it as a scoreboard and I wanted to be at the top of the scoreboard. And that was not just in the Charlotte Adecco Parker and Lynch office. That was nationwide across. Like I wanted to be at the top. I wanted to be rookie of the year. Like I wanted to be the best. I didn't know any other way, I guess.
So you had this like rocket ship take off because of the work ethic that you had. You played this like you were playing soccer. Yeah. Why did you end up rolling out of that position? Like it sounded like you were on a great trajectory.
Yeah, it was a big firm. 6 months in, I got hooked up through just a cold call, actually. I remember this. It's a company in Charlotte called Passport. They had just raised a Series E. I think it was like 60 million at the time in 2019. I remember just like being in their office. They had a panoramic view of the city, like sitting down, having a beer with the CFO, hiring some folks on their team and just thinking like, this is really cool. Like these are the type of people I want to work with. Smart folks that are like in trying to build software to just make an impact and like venture back. I got to know some of the different investment groups that they were part of. And I knew then like, okay, I want to focus on that. So my only goal from then on was to how can I fast track this to be able to work with those type of companies and those type of private equity and venture capital firms. And then that's when I left after 2.5 years to join a smaller boutique firm where I got to work directly with the CEO. He wanted to build out an exec search arm of his practice, and he only worked with venture capital firms. And yeah, I got to do that. And then it's just kind of evolved from there. But really the focus was like, okay, my end goal is to start my own firm and do my own thing. And how can I accelerate this learning curve to be able to do that?
Okay, so you went to another firm, did a lot of learning, and then you went in-house for a bit.
I did, yeah. So I joined this other boutique firm, which was interesting. And again, this like quick win mentality I had, I think this is probably still the record there. But in 9 days, I placed an executive from starting at that company. It was a company called Circular Health. I placed Steve, the director of product management there, in 9 days. I wanted to set the record. Like that was the fastest placement ever. I wanted to show that like, hey, I belonged, I can do this. And yeah, so that was cool. I ended up placing probably another 20, 25 execs in that 15 months and build over $1 million for them. And was a good run there and appreciated my time. And then, yeah, it actually, the next evolution in going in-house was interesting. And I never thought like, look, I'm an agency recruiter at heart. If you had told me like, you're going to go in-house, I would have been like, no, you're crazy. Like no disrespect to in-house, recruiters and talent acquisition. Like they're great, but it was interesting. I got to see kind of the other side of the fence, but it was actually because I was trying to get this company as a client. They happened to be in Wilmington, North Carolina. And so I got to know the leadership team, the CEO. I knew JMI Equity was getting involved at the time. And again, was trying to get them as a client, but the CEO kind of flipped the script and was like, hey, would you consider coming in-house? Like I need to build out my executive team. We need to hire, 100 plus people. We need to build out the engineering org. Like you could do this. You could own this. You could see what this side of the fence looks like. And he knew I wanted to go out and start my own firm. He was supportive. He's like, when the time is right, I will support you to do that. Hey, fast forward 2.5 years. I was at that company. We tripled ARR. We doubled headcount. Like I owned everything. We didn't use any external firms. And then I kept getting tapped on the shoulder by JMI, which I appreciated, the investment group they're like, hey, we need help with our other, portfolio companies on exec searches. Can you help me if you have the capacity? And so I appreciate that. It kind of gave me the confidence. I'm like, hey, I can do this. Like, let's do it. I'm ready to go.
Oh, pause. I got to stop here. So like you went in-house, you worked the in-house almost like you were working at an agency. Exactly. And because you were doing so good, was it a VC or a PE firm?
Private equity, growth equity firm.
Okay. So like PEs are hard to crack. Like you got to like be able to like work some miracles, kiss some babies, bring in the Pope for a client meeting to be able to like become in. Mm-hmm. So they started tapping you to help with their portfolio companies because you were doing so well at that company?
Correct. So I built that executive leadership team out and they were like, hey, this is a new investment for us. We need to bring in a CFO or a VP of customer experience or, a VP of HR. Can you help? They knew my background was in executive search. And, I got to know all the operating advisors really well as we were recruiting out at Vanica, at the software company I was in-house at. And, just kind of spiraled from there in terms of relationships that opened up and helping other companies. And I mean, yeah, it was a recipe for success because, we set up and look, I set up as an agency recruiter internally, how I was being paid. I was paid a base salary, but then also I was paid commission on every single placement I made in-house. And we tiered it by the level of role because I never wanted that to go away. So we got creative. We kind of made it work on both sides. And then, from the JMI front, I gave them a heavily discounted fee for placing an executive. JMI paid Vanica. Vanica kept 5%. They gave me 95% of the fee, and JMI got a great executive at probably, a 60%,
okay,
savings from a different firm.
I got to dig into this just a little more, just because okay, so this internal program, this commission structure, did you design it and bring it to the table?
Yeah. Yep, I did.
And to make it okay that you were like placing people at other companies, you gave your company part of the commission.
Correct. I did.
Was that part of your idea too?
Yes. It was the same investment, right? It was the same investment group. They invested in a bunch of different software companies and it helped cover some of like the HR and, let's say it was if I remember, it was like a $30,000 fee per exec that they would pay Vanica, and then Vanica kept 5% and then I got paid the rest just for those executive searches.
Did you have it as just a flat fee with them?
I did. Yep. Correct.
Okay. And they were just like, This is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's that, right? Or they could go out to a bigger firm and, it's a $75,000 fee and they can get the same, if not better service from me, who knows JMI, who knew the companies, knew kind of how they operated. And it was just a different perspective out into the market. And again, it was a win-win. Now looking back, like I didn't charge them enough, but it was a good place to continue to show my value. And like I was good at what I was doing.
It's the relationship building, right? That's what it was.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. But no, it was fun. And it still gave me kind of that, like the agency side of me never left. I got to continue to learn about new companies, but going in-house was a great experience. Like I'm not saying it wasn't. It was fun. It was just different. And I got the kind of the internal view of what it's like to build a high growth software company. It was and there's a fantastic CEO there. Like that company's going to be successful. And we had a great relationship. We ended on great terms, and I'm still helping them time to time when they need it. So again, it's all good on that front.
When did you hit the point where it was just like, okay, now I'm ready to go out on my own. I'm ready to make this jump.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I believe in life, like there's not a perfect time for anything, if that makes sense. So
Makes sense.
I kind of started setting the motion for launching my own firm while I was still in-house, and the relationship with the growth equity firm and placing other executives at portfolio companies, that was great. But then also I had a former client who introduced me to two partners at a North Carolina law firm that they wanted to scale statewide. Like they wanted to grow. And he told them, hey, this is the best recruiter I've ever worked with for software companies. You should just talk to him. Even if it's just like, hey, how should I approach this? What should I do? Like, what should my idea be out to go to market? Talk to him. So I was up front and I told him, like, guys, I don't have any experience recruiting partners at law firms. I don't know anything, but if we want to get creative, we want to try to see if this will work on both sides. Like maybe I can help you out. Like, let's try to figure out a way to do this. So I jumped in and spent a little over a year. Still, I was in-house recruiting full-time for my company, helping some of the portfolio companies, and now helping this law firm scale their firm across North Carolina. I was successful and I was able to help double their firm. I learned a ton about law firms, ChatGPT, cold calling, partners, like just, it was something that was new, and I was able to build that on the side, and it was multiple six figures just from the law firm itself and scaling that out. So it was a great situation. They added some awesome kind of rainmakers, and it was a fun learning experience.
So you're saying that you were literally working 24 hours a day to set yourself up for the dream of going on your own.
Correct. Everything I was doing was geared towards getting ready to go out on my own.
So when you went out on your own, you weren't walking out with like, hey, I got $5 in my bank account.
No, it wasn't. Part of that is because life stage I'm at. But again, you've got to step off the ledge and jump eventually. Like for me, I had a newborn at home, a 3-year-old, one income household. My wife's a licensed architect. She's way smarter than me, but she chose and wants to stay home with our sons until they start school. And so that responsibility is on me. And it's what really drives me to perform every single day. So, but yeah, I wasn't going out with like no money in the bank. Like I had already set up a business account. That money was sitting there. Like I was ready to go and kind of full force jumped in.
Okay. The Recruiter Sales and Business Development Summit is coming back. It is kicking off January 26, 2026. It is going to be the best, biggest, most focused conference for recruiters to help them grow with business development and sales. Remember, with all the summits, the live sessions are free. If you want to go for the replays, you got two options. You can go VIP on the summit platform, or you can join the community and have access to all the summits. But this is a summit that you do not want to miss. If you want 2026 to be the absolute best year possible, be there, be ready to learn, and be ready to crush it. I'll see you there. How did that conversation go with the CEO? Like, hey, it's now time.
It was great. That's exactly what I said. He was super supportive. He's like, I appreciate what you've done for us. Like, let's find a way to continue to work together. And we have. So it's been great. Also, the growth equity firm, like I reached out just to say, hey, thank you. Appreciate you guys. I've had a great relationship with folks, and I continue to work within that same portfolio. And, I just tried to do it the right way. Like this world is small, especially in recruiting, but also for private equity and venture-backed software companies. Everybody kind of knows one another. So if you burn a bridge or you do something that's sketchy and not kind of right, it gets around. So I never wanted to do that. I always wanted to make sure, I did everything the right way. And I was able to do that.
All right, let's talk about this launch. Let's talk about going all in. What did your first month look like?
First month, that was August of 2024. First month, I was completely officially on my own. I walked out, Vanica, I helped them with a senior mobile engineer. So I had, I think it was like I gave him a good hometown discount. It was like a $20K fee. I just signed my first executive search for a flat fee of $75K. So pretty quick, I had like in the hopper about close to $100K of like potential, roles that if I closed quickly, there we go. That could be a good start. Not to mention, the money that was sitting in the bank when I had already started with the attorneys and the other things. So I got lucky and had, some roles pretty quickly right away, and just kind of continue to snowball, from there.
I know one of the things you mentioned early on is like you track everything, like you track like you're playing on the field. Before we get into like the athletic mindset of recruiting, like for you, what were the things that you were tracking that has set you up for success with your own firm?
I don't know if I was tracking as much at that point at launch. For me, it was just about, okay, how can I get some quick wins and quick placements? But now, like looking back and reflecting, there's some really key critical things that I track that I think are really important. And we can get into that now. We can get into that later, but it's tough. Like at first you're just, hey, I'm completely on my own now. I want to show that I can get a placement, get another placement. But it wasn't, I had kind of already visualized, like, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to do it. I'd kind of done it to some extent as I was still in house, but now it's on my own. And, I was able to quickly do that. And just, I had a lot more volume of conversations at first, just to, hey, this is what I'm doing. If you're interested, reconnecting with old folks and, that I've worked with in the past or placed. And, you're in this long enough, your reputation, people are willing to make introductions. And, I was lucky to have a lot of people that I've worked with and placed that were kind enough to do that. I was lucky kind of from the start.
And I know that you had an incredible first year, up to you and if you want to share it. But one of the things that I've loved about watching you and listening to you on some other podcasts is like, you're like a true student of the game, like the recruiting game. Like,
yeah.
For those listening, what does a student look like in our world?
Yeah, that's a great question. A couple things I'll share on that. I identify and look at like really talented recruiters and folks that have been successful and try to just see how they've done it. Like, I mean, they're on your podcast all the time, and being able to take in that content, whether it's, Mike Williams and what he's building in Charlotte in the manufacturing space, or Brandon Glick, who's another guy who's similar mentality. Like, he played football at Princeton. He and his dad built an incredible firm. Like, he was skipping class, closing candidates when he was like 18. I kind of look at him as a mentor. Like, I'm actually having coffee with him this weekend. I want to see what like really good people are doing and how they've done it and how they've figured it out. But it's about being a student in the game. And a couple of things, I think recruiters think about, like, how can you practice recruiting? Okay, maybe it's just making more calls, but I think it comes down to a few things that are important to me that's similar in the sports world. You've got to review your game tape and you've got to track patterns. And then the other thing I think that has helped me is you've got to study really good negotiators, because recruiting, all it is negotiation all the time, nonstop. So I think Chris Voss, everybody knows him, right? The FBI negotiator and never split the difference, and how he mirrors and labeling in conversations, and just, to me, he's like, it's brilliant. It's so simple, but the things that I've tried to emulate is great. And then reviewing game tape. Like, I watch tape all the time of my games and how I performed. And it's hard at first because it may be a little cringy. You're like, God, why'd I do that? Or why'd I miss that player? But it helps so much. Like, you can listen to your own calls. You can see how your tone or the pace or how much you talk versus what you listen, like where you lose it. There's things you can look at and track. And so for me, it's reviewing that, and then patterns, right? I keep a little document. It's why candidates said no or why offers failed. And then over time, you can spot patterns, whether it was like, oh, misaligned on comp, or like the timeline drug out, or it was a bad kickoff. There's things you can track to be able to try to fix those issues quicker. And so if you can identify patterns, to me, like, that's part of being a student of the game and practicing in recruiting.
This is one of those things like you hear about it, like practice, be a student, practice. But it for sports, like, it's easy to go out, hey, I'm going to go do a 5-mile run, or I'm going to go do some like mile repeats, something of the nature. But it's so few people are like, how do I do that here in the recruiting chair?
Yeah. And I think at times, like, you feel it's such high stakes when you have clients, you can almost flip this and try to practice when the stakes are a little bit lower. And what I mean by that is, like, what can you give to a client, to a candidate, without expecting anything in return, right? I've got a couple examples that literally just happened to me like in the last 2 weeks. So there's a company that they just raised from a growth equity firm. They are a little bit smaller than what I typically work with, but I connected with the CEO. They were talking about this head of customer experience that would lead their post-sales team and implementation, onboarding, support of the actual software to customers. And they decided to not work with me. They actually decided to go with a contingency firm. So a firm that like, hey, if they are successful in the search, then we'll pay them. And look, it was great. Like I understood where they were at and where they wanted and why they wanted to kind of go that route. And I had met a really good candidate because I had a different search on the same day that other search closed. And I said, hey, this candidate's really good. They're in your market. Like they've seen the scale and growth you want to have in this role. I sent them a note. I'm like, hey, you guys should meet this candidate. They're awesome. I just met them and don't have anything for them right now. I just closed a different role. Fast forward, they're in the process, potentially going to get an offer here. And I wouldn't get anything for that fee, but you know what they did say? They said, Dave, it's very kind of you. Like we're going to definitely keep you in mind and come back to you when we have other executive roles on our team. Another example was there's a chief people officer I was connected with. I knew someone within their industry, actually had a direct competitor who was starting to look in the market. I had some market, intel of what was going on. That competitor, this person's background, I shot it over to her. I had a relationship with her and know her and have worked with her in the past and just said, hey, this person's on the market. Like if you guys are curious, you should reach out. You should have a conversation with them, and a week later, she gets back to me, she's like, hey, great. Thanks. We'll reach out. A week later, she gets back to me and, I was retained for another VP search on their team and that one just closed. And, again, it was, I'm going to give without expecting anything in return. But if you do it enough and you're in this long enough, things are going to come back to you. So that's kind of how I view it. To me, that's what relationships mean. It's not about it. The most important things about relationship, because we throw this word out a lot in the industry. And I think it's two things. It's about selection. Like, how are you going to show up yourself in the relationship? And then also, who are you selecting to actually have the relationship with? I think it was a recent podcast. I can't remember who was on with you, but they were like, hey, don't prospect with folks that are making less than you. And I never thought about that, or I never it's so interesting to me. I'm like, boom, light bulb, of course. And then so things like that you can pick up and just, what can you give without, expecting anything in return?
And just for the listeners, because I see this in like the recruiting Facebook groups, like, hey, I sent a candidate over. I'm trying to get a fee and this and that, or even though I didn't have agreement, it'd be all this money. You just said that you're like sharing somebody that's on the market for the relationship, and it's turned into business because of doing that.
Exactly. Yep. That is a great way. Not all the time, right? And not immediately, but it does come back and it will turn into business. I have it set into my calendar every week to try to make 10 introductions, whether it's candidate to candidate, client to client, whether it's like another example, I've got candidates that, hey, maybe nothing for them right now, but they're really good candidates. And I will introduce them to different private equity or venture firms, depending on kind of where their background is, the industry, what vertical SaaS they've been a part of, and just like broker introductions and relationships and conversations there.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said that you have that in your calendar. What else do you have in your calendar? Like, that it's like reminders, like, hey, I need to do this too.
It's fun. And I think I got this from Brandon Glick. It is to update what I call like a free agency. Google, it's a sheet that I have of like my best top quality placeable candidates that are awesome and that I need to track, even if I don't have anything for them now, to stay in constant contact with them. So that's every single week I touch base. And I think right now, I don't have it in front of me, but it's probably close to 80, 85 people. And just all across different verticals, all across different sizes of software companies on the exec side. Because the beauty about executive search is that every candidate can eventually turn into a potential client. And that's how I look at it. So it's to constantly follow up, and it's a little bit manual, but again, something I think about and something I kind of live by is, do things that don't scale. And that seems counterintuitive, but it's to simplify, especially the way that I'm and the kind of the stage that I'm at. Like, that's how I think about things. And maybe it takes a little bit more work, but again, I think Brent says it is like, look at your average fee. And if your average fee is higher, you can do less volume. And so it's a balance of volume and fee. And again, those are all come back to things that I, track today that I think are really important.
And there's something else that you've mentioned a few times is visualization. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. It's a couple things. I would say, in order to visualize being successful, I think the first thing is like, you can't put anybody on a pedestal. And that might sound like disrespectful, but to me, like titles, resumes, that doesn't win. Like, it's the execution that matters. So you've got to respect people, but you kind of never let yourself feel smaller. And if you can do that and you can visualize like, hey, Mr. CEO of a $50 million software company, like, let's just talk. Like, you're an equal, I'm an equal, we're human. Like, That's key. And I think when you commit to playing kind of at that level, you realize something that you can either produce like really excellent outcomes for them, or you're going to avoid criticism. I don't think there's like an area to do both. So like, it's just a high standard that you chase. More people are going to judge you. That's fine. I think Brandon, again, not to reference another podcast host, but he's like, hey, half the people you talk to probably aren't going to want to do business with you. And that's okay. Just be you and you'll be all right. And again, it comes back. The real competition isn't other people, because I've connected with what you would quote competitive, competition firms that are similar in what they're billing, but we trade ideas. And like, I've told them my pricing. Is that stupid? Maybe, but it's like, hey, we're bouncing ideas off one another. There's, room for all recruiters to be successful if you are dedicated enough. And that's how I kind of view it.
Yeah, it's the abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset. It's hundreds of billions of dollars industry. There's enough money for all of us.
Yeah, I agree.
There's enough money that we could take it from the big firms. Come on.
Exactly. So it's great. It's funny to be like noticed. And I've had friends that have reached out and be like, hey, like, would you ever come and lead this side of our firm? And I've had 2 software companies this year that I've placed executives at try to bring me in-house. And so to me, that's like a testament of the work that you've done. And it's good to kind of be noticed in that sense.
So being an athlete, I know we had this conversation like offline, but you like focus on like, maybe I should ask this, like, what does your day look like? But I know like we talked about you like talking about focusing on your goals every single day. Can you like maybe weave that into what your day looks like too?
Yeah, I think it just comes back to me is like, if I don't track something to a number, sometimes it gets kind of slipped through the cracks. So I kind of live and die by my calendar. I mean, and also having 2 young kids, I mean, you kind of know this, like you have to be disciplined in the way, whether it's you're waking up, how you're getting to the gym, like what are you doing throughout your day? Especially being solo, like nobody's going to come save me. Nobody cares. Like if I don't do it, it's not going to impact anybody else except me. And so for me, I'm like maniacal in the way that I track everything. So I think of, hey, a couple of things that I highlighted that I've tracked is like, what's my, average fee? What is my average revenue that I've brought in per month? And I'm tracking both of those since I've started. I actually built this Excel sheet or table that I think is great. And I'll share it with the community that, I joined, and congrats that you've obviously launched and it's awesome so far. And I'll share it, but it's cool. You can see like, okay, what's your annual fee goal? And then you can put in like your average fee placement, and then what's your close rate? And then that shares how many placements are required, and then how many searches you need based on your close rate. And then what's your pipeline that you need? So like, hey, if you want to bill $1 million and you have like I'm just looking at mine, a 90% close rate, then I need to have, whatever 1.7, 1.8 in my total pipeline. And then, how many searches is that per month? And so you can just kind of track all these things. And that's a visual that I look at. And then a couple that I think are interesting that I don't hear a lot of people tracking: client repeat business. This kind of sounds simple, but all but 1 client so far since I've launched have been repeat customers. So that's huge. I think placement to referral ratio. So like, how many referrals am I getting and am I generating per placement? So that's on the candidate side I look at, and the client side, because for me, if like you're having success as a client, there's ways that you can get introductions to others and peers. And like, so I track that, and that shows like, am I building trust deep enough, for people to open their network? So that's something that I look at. And then the other I'd say is time to first response from an outreach. Like I have Loxo, and that'll track, open rate, response rates. But I like to take it further. Like, how quickly can I turn that cold outreach into a 2-way conversation? So speed at which I can get a client or candidate on the phone, and tracking that tells me like, is my messaging resonating? How interested are they? So that helps me in how I track that as well.
And I got another question. This is another pregame question. You have a sign above your head.
I do. I stole it from Brent. It says, if you don't kill it today, your kids won't eat.
And every day you walk into your office, you feel that.
Every day. Yeah, every day. And on the side of my desk here, I've got one of those like, virtual picture frames where just pictures are constantly cycling through, and like, it's my family, it's my wife, it's my boys, it's my kids, like, and just it's simple, but it comes back to that. Like, that's why I'm doing it. And so, yeah, it's powerful, but I look at it every single day, and it's a reminder. Like, the thing that I love about recruiting, and just like professional sports, you're direct, how much effort and your direct, will to want to win can be measured, and it's the impact of like what you're going to make monetarily, the relationships, the impact on other people. Like you can control that effort to, a pretty high degree. And that's why I love that. And the upside is huge and the downside is huge, but that's just how I operate. And that's the DNA, which I will always, and that's why I'm a lifer for this industry. And where not many people, I guess, can say that.
What else are we missing in this recruiter athletic DNA that we need to talk about before jumping to the next part?
Yeah, again, I'm biased because I think athletes can honestly make the best recruiters, because when I think about recruiting, I see it as like an athletic pursuit. It's the same mentality, right? It's adversity, pressure, deals fall apart, candidates back out, but athletes are built for that. Like pressure doesn't crush us. Like I'm used to it. Like I've been traded, I've been cut. Like it sharpens us. It's goal setting. It's the work ethic. Because in sports, right, you're always working back from the scoreboard. That's how you're measured, is the success of, hey, what are the results? And again, just like in recruiting, it's grit. It's the ability to visualize having a great conversation with a potential client or a candidate. And it's this, I say it often, but it's like a delusional amount of self-belief. And I have that. And call me naive. And, if the odds aren't in your favor, like I'm an opportunistic person as well. Like I want to see the good and I have like a positive belief in things. But as an athlete, like that's just, you've got to have that. Like you've got to have this short-term memory, right? Like you hear about these shooters shoot, right? And you've got to be able to do that. You've got to move on to the next. If you can do that in recruiting, like you're going to be ahead of 60% of the people probably in the industry.
And one last thing before we jump over to the quickfire questions. I hear you handwrite cards. Does that set you apart?
Yeah. I think so. It's kind of old school. It's funny. My mom told me growing up, like practice your social skills. Like she constantly just hammered that into my head. So yeah, I actually got a new client from handwriting a card and just saying, hey, this is what I do. Like I've been following your private equity firm. There was a connection. I can't remember if it was like a school. There was some unique connection I had with the person. So yeah, sent them a handwritten card and got a meeting with them and it landed. So I also sent a handwritten card to Craig Picken, who, is yet to get back to me, but he's a legendary recruiter here in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm not even the best recruiter in my small town of Wilmington, but I think it works. I do.
If Craig, if you're listening to this, I'm sending a message to all three of you guys because I actually just interviewed him yesterday because of you.
Hey,
man, he didn't want to talk
good.
Numbers, but yeah, it was a fun conversation too. This has been an awesome week because of both of you guys in like 2 days.
Nah, it's great.
Anyways, we're going to jump over the quickfire questions. And I know you've been on multiple podcasts. You're out there sharing. By the way, thank you for joining the community and popping in there sharing too. But with all the sharing, I know that there's newer recruiters that have seen your stuff and kind of seen what you've done. If a new recruiter hit you up and just like, hey, brand new to the industry, I walk out of college athletics, kind of into this career world, not knowing what I want to do, but I found recruiting. What advice would you give to me to be successful in this space?
Yeah. I think you've got to cut your teeth. Like you've got to take action and learn by doing. That's just kind of how you have to start. You've got to be a rookie. You've got to be okay with not being the best. And it's hard as athletes because we're wired. Like we're the best of the best. Like I played in MLS, probably less than 1% of people in the United States will ever play in MLS. And so I think you've got to just cut your teeth and learn and understand like what is a recruiter's true value. And that's not pulling names or profiles off of LinkedIn. It's driving a process to get a signed offer. Like simple as that. And so the best recruiters, for me, at least in what I've done, I try to sprint to a no, get to the no as quick as possible on either side. And that's going to save you time and, protect your time because time is the most valuable thing as a recruiter.
Do you have a favorite book that's had a huge impact on your career?
Extreme Ownership. That's one. Hard Things About Hard Things. Like that's another. Yeah, I would say Extreme Ownership for me is up there. And then you've got Never Split the Difference, like Chris Voss. You've got, the classic there. But yeah, I'd say those kind of stick out.
I was going to ask you what your favorite tech tool is, but I'd love to hear your entire tech stack.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've got LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I don't even have LinkedIn Recruiter. I've got Sales QL for like data, email, contact info, Loxo, MetaView, and then Smart Lead. And so I've been able to I built a custom, GPT. It helps give me like a numerical output of what the fit is for the role based on like job description, interview notes, intake call notes, and feedback from interviews that have already like taken place. So I built that. That's been super helpful. And then MetaView for me is like really key. And, I've been able to create a template that helps cut, candidate presentation and to clients. And that's been super helpful. But that's kind of the main stack today.
Have you seen MetaView's new sourcing tool?
I've seen it pop up yet. I haven't really played around in it yet, but excited. I know it's going to be class. I mean, I know they just announced a new, I think they raised, I don't remember how much, but yeah, it's great. It's a great tool.
What is one of the biggest challenges that you've had to work through?
Being hyper focused and doing things that are going to produce revenue and saying no to like every single conversation, every kind of pick your brain. And that's hard to do because I don't like to like not brush people off, but say no. And I try to, again, be protective of my time, but it's like saying no to the things that aren't necessarily driving revenue and being completely focused in doing that.
Like, how do you analyze? I mean, this is for the recruiters out there, because one of the things that you see a lot of recruiters, like, like, I'm here to help. Like, you're here, like the networking or the giving time. How do you figure out what might be worth it versus what could be pulling away from where you need to be going?
I'd say I'm still figuring that out, to be honest.
Okay.
But it's not a perfect science, but I do think like you've got to give with no expectation in return, but you also have to give in a way that could ultimately impact revenue down the line. And now look, not in all conversations do I have like, are they going to drive revenue? Like, no, there might be some folks I connect with or just kind of give or refer them over to a firm or just like try to help and make a connection that doesn't time suck, but just being able to be like very protective of my calendar.
So you just hit your first year mark just recently, right?
Yeah, correct. August was, technically 12 months out on my own.
If you could go back in time and sit down with yourself in that first month, what would you tell yourself?
That is a great question. I would tell myself to not bank on potential new clients closing because you feel like you had a really good initial meeting, even if it's through like a referral or introduction. I mean, you hear this a lot, but continue to always BD. Don't ever stop with the business development. And that's a challenge I have because I now cap myself. I will not take on more than 5 searches is tough. It's a stretch because I do everything and I'm retained and like I have to perform at a high level for these clients. I probably should only be doing 4 searches at a time, but you gotta make sure that like right now I'm heavy on the roles and what does my BD look like? I have to have that baked into my calendar or it can get away from yourself. So always continue to do the business development. And that's kind of an easy thing, I'd say. But then also it's just like sharing your journey and being able to share, whether it's LinkedIn, of utilizing, what your social is and what's your story. Because people want to work with you because of your story and help educate, let them be personable, like show success. Like those things are, I think, key and important.
So you also, your LinkedIn stuff is like probably some of the best out there when it comes to recruiting. Like, where did you learn the structure of how to actually post LinkedIn that does something?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it because that's honestly, social isn't something I've ever like set out to be good at. It's still a little bit out of my comfort zone, but really my approach, I think, comes down to just being real. I tie things back to my sports days, which I think is unique and I think gives me a different perspective of a lot of recruiters don't have. Both the highs, the adversity, but that all shapes how I see the business. But I'm also like, I'm a high performing recruiter. I'm not afraid to say that. Like, I want to show what I've done and what I've improved, but I know I still have a long way to go. So to me, it's just about like being real and sharing like what you're experiencing and educating, because you want to educate your market on, hey, what are you seeing in the software world? Private equity, right? They're holding on to investments longer right now. How does that impact executives? So there's all these things that you can share to give you an insight and to be looked at as an expert. And then, also I just kind of like to look at myself at old pictures of me playing soccer and long hair and, reminisce on those days. I think I'm the only recruiter in the world to ever have scored a professional soccer goal on Tim Howard. I'll take that to the bank. But the problem is Tim was on my team and it was an own goal. So that's not good. You don't want to score own goals. But that's my claim to fame.
I think I quit soccer after scoring my own goal.
Hey, it happens. It happens.
My coach was just like, hey, there's this thing called running. You should probably go look at doing that.
Hey, you can run for days. I could only run if I was chasing a ball.
My high school soccer coach was like, you should try cross country. You suck at soccer.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And that's what took me to college. Thank God.
There you go. Yep.
Well,
Yep.
anyways, so you've been on multiple podcasts. I've watched you like in the community. I've watched you on LinkedIn. You probably get asked a lot of questions based on like your success, the things that you've done, how driven you are, like how much you're willing to share. And like, I'm sure you get questions like, hey, what's the BD strategy? What's this email? How are you doing this? Like, what are you actually putting on that handwritten card to get a brand new private equity company? With all these questions that you get, do you wish somebody would just ask you something? Is this a question they're like, man, I wish they would just freaking ask this, but they never do. If so, what is that?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So I think if someone would ask me, one of the really important questions that they should be thinking about, I think is, do you genuinely enjoy spending time with and learning from the people that you're going to be working with or placing in those roles? So like, in other words, are these the kind of people that you want to talk to day in and day out and learn from? And I think, again, it comes down to recruiting is more just about them filling the roles. It's about how you understand the people deeply, because no disrespect, but like engineers and engineering leadership and how they think about the business is going to be very different from like go-to-market executives. So do I want to place a lot of like technical? No, I don't. They're great and they're very critical for the business, but I prefer kind of the other side of the fence. So it's like, do you enjoy spending time with the people that you're going to be placing and also like you're going to be working with from the client side? Seems like a simple question, but you don't really think about it, right?
That actually just made me think of like a Facebook group post that someone popped in today anonymously. Was just like, hey, I kind of hate the niche I'm in.
Yeah.
And I just like, you and Rich Rosen are just like, find a niche that you enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was recruiting attorneys on the side and partners, I quickly learned, I'm like, yeah, this isn't for me. I'm never going to be a lifelong recruiting on attorneys for firms. But it was great. I learned a ton and made great revenue, and it was a good experience. It was a win-win, but that wasn't me for the long term.
Well, anyways, this has been an awesome episode that I've been looking forward to. You were actually on my wish list for a while. And then I think like I had 2 people hit me up like, hey, interview Jared. I'm like, I know, guys, come on. Just give me a break.
That's great. I appreciate the kind words. And I mean, likewise, you do a ton for this community, and I love listening to all the podcasts, and I was a religious listener and again, learned so much from the guests that you have on. So I don't know if I'm worthy enough to be on the podcast, but it's been awesome. I've been looking forward to it as well.
Jared, two last questions before I let you go.
Okay.
If somebody wants to follow you, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, I'd say easiest is LinkedIn. So just, follow Next Play Search Group, Next without the E, NXT Play Search Group, or just personal profile. Let's connect, follow. That's probably kind of the socials that I focus on. I am off of all other social media. So no Instagram or Facebook or any other social media, just LinkedIn.
Super smart. And before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners?
I think what I would share is, the most important thing I would share is, do not wait for the right time. No one's going to come save you. Don't have a victim mentality, and just believe in yourself and have conversations. Try to provide value and things will work out. And if not, find another way, figure it out.
Love that, Jared. I think that I have nothing to say after that. Like, I'm excited to literally get, like, after this interview to go hit the phones and start recruiting. So anyways, guys, awesome episode. Can't wait to see you guys for the next one. And remember, what you guys do right now to wrap up the end of the year is going to be the foundation of your 2026. So guess what? Whenever this goes live in Q4, go all in. Be the athlete, learn the game, and play at a high level. So Jared, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Running a recruiting firm is enough work. You shouldn't need 5 vendors to manage your online presence. With Recruiter's websites, you get it all in one place. Websites, SEO, paid ads, automation, and ongoing strategy, all built specifically for recruiters. We understand your industry, your clients, and your challenges. Simplify your marketing and strengthen your results. Mention Elite Recruiter and get 10% off any new service at recruiterswebsites.com. Admin is a massive waste of time. That's why there's Atlas, the AI first recruitment platform built for modern agencies. It doesn't only track resumes and calls. It remembers everything, every email, every interview, every conversation, instantly searchable, always available. And now it's entering a whole new era. With Atlas 2.0, you can ask anything and it delivers. With Magic Search, you speak and it listens. It finds the right candidates using real conversations, not simply looking for keywords. Atlas 2.0 also makes business development easier than ever. With opportunities, you can track, manage, and grow client relationships powered by generative AI and built right into your workflow. Need insights? Custom dashboards give you total visibility over your pipeline. And that's not theory. Atlas customers have reported up to 41% EBITDA growth and an 85% increase in monthly billings after adopting the platform. No admin, no silos, no lost info, nothing but faster shortlists, better hires, and more time to focus on what actually drives revenue. Atlas is your personal AI partner for modern recruiting. Don't miss the future of recruitment. Get started with Atlas today and unlock your exclusive listener offer at recruitwithatlas.com.